So I want to give a very warm thank you. We are honored by the presence of the Wanapong Nation and the Nakab that are here. Please give them a warm welcome. I want to thank our supporters, all the volunteers that came out today, and all of our community members that make this possible. Thank you so much. Tonight, we look back to reflect on 10 years of creating community discussions on great issues that shape our neighborhood and our planet, and also to look to the future, to create a sustainable planet. I can't think of a better person to remind us how capable we are if we only stand together, as our keynote speaker, Winona LaDuke. I would first like, before we bring her up, to introduce Hartman Dietz. He is going to give us a Wanapong blessing. He is a member of the Mashpee Wampong tribe and involved with Native activism for over 20 years. He's the member of Idle No More, San Francisco Bay. He helped organize the refinery corridor healing walks, and in 2016 shut down the Army Corps of Engineers in San Francisco. Dietz also traveled to Standing Rock in North Dakota 3 times and brought donations and stand on the front line. He currently works with the tribes on historical preservation of office. Please give him a really warm welcome.
Wininakan, Nataswis Hartman, Nutamas Masipia, Ka Nin Wampanak. Good evening. My name is Hartman. I am Mashpee Wampanoag from the town of Mashpee. I am Wampanoag. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for having me. It's quite an honor to be able to stand up here and open this occasion up. Indians come out to see Winona. I was saying the last time I laid eyes on Winona was at Standing Rock, and I didn't bother to even try to say hello. It was like a sea of people almost as big as you surrounding her. So I said, oh, I see her over there. But Native folks come out to see her because she is really a bright and shining voice, a real pillar to, well, I should say she's just a real leader to many of the things that are pillars to sustaining us as Native people, whether it's renewable energy, whether it's food sovereignty, political voice, economics. These are all things that need to be addressed in Indian country, and it seems like in all these areas, when you look to the forefront, you find Winona LaDuke there. So it's she's a very powerful woman, a very amazing woman to have, and to be able to come out and hear her is something that I know we all are going to enjoy. Anyway, with that, just to give a simple acknowledgement to where we are. As a Wampanoag of Mashpee, this land at one point in time was Wampanoag land before the division between the Massachusetts people and the Wampanoag people after the Great Plague came and wiped out 90% of the folks along the coast. So there was a time that this territory was a part of our territory. And here we are, some 400 years later on the same ground that we've always been on. A very fortunate thing for Native people. Not everybody can say that. So I want to welcome you as a Wampanoag person to this event in our homeland, in the land that we've come from. Welcome you to share and share the stories that we have, share in the teachings that are coming to us from our relatives out in White Earth there. So I don't know, with that, I think that's all I really need to say. Well, no, it's not all I need to say. I should say, Katapas Matuman Kanikanachik. Thank you, Creator and the ancestors. Katapatas Wachi Yunakana. Thank you for this night. Katapatas Wachi Wami Hawanikyuat. Thank you for all the people who are here. Ka Wanikan Piama Nuikat Unakanet. So I hope you all return to your house safe tonight. Aho. For me, home is Mashpee. It's not that far. And it is a community of Native people right here in Massachusetts. We are facing a lot of issues right now here in our homeland. The threat of having land taken away from us that has been put into trust. They're inventing new laws and new processes to do this, and I thought that we might be the first on the chopping block, but with the executive order by our president to seize land in Bears Ears, we see that we are not going to be the first, but still, this is a part of one of the greatest land grabs in history that we're witnessing right now. And we often hear about how terrible it was what happened to the Indians, and it was so long ago, but this is right now, this is right here, this is today. And what are we going to do about it? We can sit and be silent and say, oh, it's too bad and it's a shame, or we can stand up and fight back and do something. So that's what I hope to see. That's why I hope to find in our future, that we all come together and figure out what's important for us, figure out what we need to get into the future, how we're going to get there. So before I rattle on too long, I'll step aside and let you guys get to the words of a woman who has a lot of the good ideas about how to get us into the future that we need to be in. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dietz. And thanks to Annie Martinez, who you've met at the beginning. She is the director of the forum. And as you can imagine, there were a few details involved in getting this event to happen. And so thank you very much, Annie Martinez, for your leadership. I'm Chuck Collins, and I want to welcome you on behalf of First Church, Jamaica Plain, Unitarian Universalist, as well as the Institute for Policy Studies. The Jamaica Plain Forum is kind of a co-production of those organizations. And I was saying that 10 years ago, the first forum we had was a number of Iraq veterans coming back who had just formed an organization called Military Families Speak Out, and they spoke here about their experiences in Iraq. But we've also had some other amazing forums. We've had a number of building trade workers from this community went to help rebuild after Hurricane Katrina and came back and did a report back to the community, and 100 neighbors came out to hear them. They're not all serious talks. One of our most well-attended forums was called What Is Your Dog Thinking? By lots of dog owners from the community came out. This church is actually hosted, while this Jamaica Plain Forum is 10 years old, in the 1880s and 1870s, there was something called the Elliott Forum. Back when the Footlight Club was our parish hall, we also had a lyceum and a forum. And the likes of abolitionist William Lloyd Garrison and Susan B. Anthony and other suffragettes and other leaders of reform and change, the likes of Frederick Douglass and others, spoke from this place. And so we like to think this is a people's pulpit. And even with the Jamaica Plain Forum, we had the first woman elected to the Afghanistan Parliament, spoke from this spot. When I invited Winona to come, I said, first you got to come up here just to see if you're okay speaking from this spot. And she was like, yeah, it's a little high up here, but at least you can see, you'll be able to see her. So I want to say, before I introduce Winona, I just want to say that one of the reasons, the forum 100 years ago didn't have as much competition, meaning that today there's a lot of competition, which is mostly staying home. You could have been home tonight. You could have been sitting on a couch, there's a new Netflix series, or you could have been just tired after work. What we're trying to do is maintain that place where people can come out, meet their neighbors, have conversations, have some fellowship In the last year, we've really tried to have tea and coffee and snacks and sort of warm up. We've tried to get nicer chairs. I don't know if you remember those metal chairs. Now we're thanks to this event and the funds that we've raised here, we're buying lots of better chairs that will make it even more enticing to leave home. We thought we would do a demonstration between the old metal chair and the new chair, and you could test them out and see what you're investing in by being here. Another thing that we want to do is, there was a member of this congregation named Emily Green Bulch. She was born right across the street, not far from the Loring Greeno house. And there's a window that's covered up right now from the Bulch family. Emily Green Bulch, at the beginning of World War I, was one of the women who led the resistance to the militarism and the entry into World War I. She started the organization that became the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. She won the Nobel Prize, the Nobel Peace Prize in 1946 for her life's work. And so she was a member of this congregation. She heard some of those speakers. She heard the speakers at the Elliott Forum. She was shaped by the conversations that happened here. And one of the things we want to do as part of this Jamaica Plain Forum going forward is we would like to have an annual Emily Green Bulch lecture. We would like to be able to pay somebody a decent honorarius so that they could come a rabble-rouser in the spirit of Emily Green Bulch, who, by the way, was fired from Wellesley College as a teacher for her anti-war positions. We want to lift people up like that. And so I'd like to let you know that tonight is our first Emily Green Bulch lecture. And so with that, let me turn to our speaker, Winona LaDuke. She is the executive director of Honor the Earth. It's an organization that was formed to create awareness and support for Native environmental issues and develop the capacity to help Native communities survive. Honor the Earth develops those resources using music and the arts, media, and indigenous wisdom to ask people to recognize our joint dependency on the earth and be a voice who are not heard. Winona is, in her younger days, she was co-founder of the Indigenous Women's Network. She was twice a vice presidential candidate on the Green Party ticket. She put her name in there. And I first met her almost 30 years ago when she was working on the White Earth Reservation in Minnesota. White Earth, Minnesota, over the last 100 years, a lot of the land that was originally put aside for indigenous folks was kind of transferred out of indigenous ownership. And so she founded something called the White Earth Land Recovery Project to recover some of that land and to do economic development projects. And I got to work with her on that project, trying to create a land trust for the White Earth Land Recovery Project, which has now acquired over 1,400 acres of land, has a rice plantation business, has a number of other economic development projects in formation. So it's really part of regenerating that region. So we are honored to have her here as a water protector, as someone who is involved in the Dakota Access Pipeline project, but also involved in a number of resisting other pipeline efforts that she'll tell us about. And I think this is a good time, for us to be together and to have some perspective. And one of the quotes that I really like from Winona, she says, sometimes we lose perspective. It's a cultural trait in America to think in terms of very short-term periods. And Winona says, my advice is learn history. Take responsibility for history. Recognize that sometimes things take a long time to change. If you look at your history in this country, you will find that most rights people had to struggle. People in this era forget that and quite often think they're entitled and are weary of struggling over any period of time. So let's use tonight as a way to fortify ourselves for the struggles ahead. And let's welcome, Jamaica Plain welcome to Winona LaDuke.
Thank you. Ani Nindue Maganaduk. Hello, my relatives. How y'all doing out there tonight? This is a really, really high place to talk from here. I don't think I ever talked at such a high place, but thank you so much for the honor of being here tonight with you. And I also particularly want to thank the Wampanoag community, the indigenous people of this territory, for having me out here, and I'm always happy to come back. Some of you know I spent a lot of time out here in school in the late 70s and the early 80s, and the Wampanoag people changed my life. And we are their relatives. I'm an Anishinaabe from northern Minnesota, Benesi Kwe Indigenicas, Makwendodam, Gababani Kog, Ishkaniganing, and Dunjiba. So thank you again. But in our history, a long time ago, Minwenja, our people were here. Our people are the same people as the Wampanoag people, as the Abenaki people, as the Mi'kmaq people. We're the same people. We speak the same language. And long, long ago, the prophets told our people to follow a shell which appeared in the sky. And so we followed that shell, and we were told to follow the shell to the place where the food grew upon the water, and that was wild rice. And so it was long ago that we traveled from this place, but we come back and we remember this place and we love this place, and I'm very grateful to be here with you tonight. So as I thought of what to talk about, I thought about this time that we are in and this great spiritual moment we have. We have this opportunity to keep a lot of bad things from happening. And that is a great spiritual moment to be the people that do that. And it is really up to us to find our courage. It is an opportunity for us to find our courage to be the people that we know that we are and that the Creator is counting on us to be and our descendants are counting on us to be. That is this moment here in time, the courage to do the right thing. As we look out there around the world, or just in North America, we see that there are fires raging to the west. To the south, we have had so many hurricanes and storms that have destroyed so much territory. I do not know what will come from the north, but I know that there is a crazy man with orange hair in the east who is screaming and imperiling us all. So it is this moment when we must face what is here. I want to tell you a story. I know that Biboon is coming here soon, Biboonagay, which is winter. Winter is coming here. I heard of snow. Zugipun is coming tomorrow. I'm kind of hoping to get out just before that hits. You can pray with me on that. My children are waiting. But as I think about that, in our territory, there's stories of winter, Biboon. Biboon, it is a brutal winter where I live in the North Country. And in our territory, the Anishinaabe story of winter, of when Biboon comes, there is always a story of some of the hardest and most brutal times that we face as the Anishinaabe people in the coldest of winter in the North Country. And there's a spirit and a being that comes in our territory at that time. That spirit is called the Wendigo. The Wendigo. That spirit is known as a cannibal. And that spirit, that Wendigo, has laid to waste our villages in years past and in the memory of our people, has taken more than he needs and not left the rest, has terrified our people and imperiled them so that they stay inside and are afraid. Our people have a long history of experience with the Wendigo, and our people always in the legends of our people tell the story of how our people slayed the Wendigo. They tell that story. And sometimes it is the story of a little girl who no one would listen to, but she said, this is how we are going to kill that monster. And sometimes it is a story of someone else who no one thought could have the answer, but they came with how you would kill that who would slay your people, who would put fear in you. And I think about that time that we talked about in history, and I tell you that that time is also now. That time is also now. What we are experiencing is what I refer to as Wendigo economics. That's what we have. We have an economic system which destroys its mother. We have an economic system which lays to waste people and territories and water and life forms. We are living in a Wendigo economy. And it is really time to find our courage to challenge that. There is, of course, a long history of this, and everybody here knows that. In my own territory, I think of our stories, and I think of perhaps this story is best told by the Latin American scholar Eduardo Galeano, who said, in the colonial to neo-colonial alchemy, gold changes to scrap metal and food to poison. We have become painfully aware of the mortality of wealth which nature bestows and imperialism appropriates. In this place here, you know, there are so many schools, and there are so many people who think so hard, and there are so many ways that we describe these things. And even as I recall my history in Boston and in Cambridge, there's a lot of like, just, I don't want to say splitting hairs down to the end on how you're describing this stuff. Y'all know what I'm talking about though, right? The question to me is kind of, what you gonna do about it, you know? So we are looking out there now, and the Wendigo's latest plans. The Wendigo's latest plans are, of course, the tax cuts, right? The tax bill, despite the fact that 400 millionaires and billionaires wrote to Congress, right? To say don't do it because we don't need a greater disparity of wealth in this country. So let me get this right. 400 millionaires and billionaires wrote to Congress and said don't pass the tax bill because we don't need it. But still went through, right? We look out there and we see that the Wendigo has war everywhere. You know, there is war everywhere. And we all know it, and it grieves us so much as we look out there. And we just, you know, we have so much sorrow. We all do because we know that, you know, here we are, United States, right? We have so much grief and sorrow for what happens in the name of this country. We are seeing the normalizing of rape culture in this country. You know, I don't even want to talk about that new guy, where's he out of, Alabama? Roy Moore? Like, what the hell, right? We don't want to talk about that, you know, I mean, all of that, you know, it is so wrong, it is so wrong. But yet, you know, the standards are not applied evenly, I will tell you that. We are seeing the militarization again of our civilian police forces. Some of you were at Standing Rock, I was at Standing Rock, and I saw an MRAP, mine-resistant armored personnel carrier, put on our people. I saw an LRAD, long-range acoustic device, intended to blow out our eardrums, that was brought, and they just figured they could bring it out to Standing Rock because it was Standing Rock. And for those of you who went to Standing Rock, or those of you who've heard of North Dakota, we refer to North Dakota as the Deep North. We refer to it as the Deep North, and some of you who were at Standing Rock saw that why we call it that. Because the amount of racism against our people, the amount of hatred, the amount of fear, and the number of oil companies who have determined the public policy of that state is a shame in a democracy, in a state that once was socialist. Y'all remember that? They shared everything. It was like a cool state once. That's when it was great. We are seeing the Wendigo destroy sacred sites. This last week, you know, we knew it was coming. Trump decided to start dismantling national monuments, taking at the top Bears Ears. The first national monument in this country that was created by indigenous people working with the National Park Service. So that was like totally a first. You know, 5 native nations came together to make that happen, including the Dene, and the Hopi, and the Zuni, and the Ute. And we're seeing that the commander-in-chief has just eliminated 85% of Bears Ears to open it up for fracking and for mining. In the meantime, I have to say I've seen a lot of petty infighting in my own community. I don't know how to say this. I know you guys are above that here, right? But what I want to say is that one of the greatest losses that I have experienced, and my grief is immense, is the loss of Al Franken. It's the loss of Al Franken. He kept a moral standard, but at the same time, you know, while the commander-in-chief is accused of rape by his own ex-wife, Ivanka, Al Franken is who loses his job. And I'm like, what are we gonna do now, smart guys? So I look out there and I say to myself sometimes, and I said it to my own people, because my own tribe is infighting over stupid stuff. I just watched it, you know? I just wanna let you know that nobody has a monopoly on dysfunctional government, okay? I just wanna let you know, okay? In case you were thinking that it was just only in one place, it's everywhere. It's everywhere, right? My own tribe has been infighting, and I was looking at that, and I was thinking of how much heartache there is in my community, and we're so busy infighting. And I said to myself, you know, instead of fighting the Wendigo, we're becoming the Wendigo, you know? And I want to rise above that. I want to be the people that, like those people of the legends of old, defeated the Wendigo. Because that's who we are. That's what we have in our DNA, and that's what we have when we find our courage and when we find our power. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story about our little community. So I live in a place that is beautiful. Anishinaabe people live in the northern part of 5 American states and the southern part of 4 Canadian provinces. We are the people of the Great Lakes. We have the Great Lakes within the heart of our territory. We are the people who followed a shell which appeared in the sky to a place where there is wild rice on almost every lake. I live in a place where you can still drink the water from a lake. That's where I live. I live in a place that is not unlike this territory where you can still get sugar from a tree, right? You can still go out there and harvest throughout your territory because it is a good land. It is a good land. Just like this land here, although I really don't like that y'all call it New England. So I mention that. There's nothing very new about it. At some point, y'all should just let that go. Just let that go. You know what I'm saying? I know that you guys are like totally tough to hang on to stuff, but that one should just go. You know, you get those cool names like Massachusetts. You know what I'm saying? You got all these cool indigenous names up here, and you still stick to that damn New England. Anyway, don't get me going on that. And the other thing that really irritates me is the naming of large mountains after small men. Y'all know what I'm saying on that? Like, why they gotta name everything? And then the whole idea, like, I love men, you know, I raised 4 sons, you know what, I'm good. But it's just like, how can you name something as immortal as a mountain after something as mortal as a human? And half those guys you name stuff after are just absolute creeps in history, right? I want to tell you, we just got a little work to do. Did y'all get that? If we want to hang around, let's try to fix some things up. So I live in this beautiful territory, in our territory, and it is worth fighting for. So Chuck described my situation. When I returned from Harvard, I went out in 1981, that's when I left Harvard. And I went to my community, and I started working on our land rights issues because our land had been taken illegally. And Chuck and many others helped us to create a land trust to buy back some of our land inside our reservation. And, so I really like fixing things or making things good, you know? And we looked around and we realized that no one was really gonna fix things for us. You know, you live in the poorest county in the state of Minnesota, they ain't noticing you. You know what I mean? You're the brown people in the north. They already built their empire off of taking your land and taking your timber, taking your trees. We looked around and we waited for the federal government to fix things, and we waited for the state to fix things, and we waited for our tribal government to fix things, but they all went to jail. And so then we decided to fix things ourselves. So we started this project, White Earth Land Recovery Project, and we bought back land and we started restoring our traditional agriculture. You know, we were able to continue to buy land, a large maple syruping operation, a wild rice processing mill. You know, as an economist, you know, you look at my community and you'd see that, one, they kept training people for jobs that were never going to exist over the long term. At a certain point, they had more people in job training programs on my reservation than they had people working. And I was like, so how's that going to work over the long term? The other thing that, you know, I mean, we're still things are taken from us. But the other thing that my community faces is that we are not unlike a lot of other communities in that our economy is hemorrhaging. It is hemorrhaging. That is to say that we spend most of our money on food that is imported from elsewhere, off reservation. We shop at Food Service of America and Sodexo, right? Walmart. you know. $8 million of our reservation, you know, we spent $8 million on food and $7 million was spent off reservation. Hemorrhaging local economy, that's what that is. Same thing with energy. All our energy imported from fossil fuel industries elsewhere. A tribe which suffers, like many people in this territory, suffer from fuel poverty. You're gonna eat or you're gonna heat, right? There's a lot of people that suffer from that. So we look around our community and we try to start working on making a difference, you know? So that's what I've been doing, you know, my community. And then what happened is about 6 years ago, 5 years ago, we'll start with it. The Enbridge company announces some new pipelines. And my community is not unlike yours. We got old pipelines there. Y'all got really old pipelines here. I know that, you know. And let me be honest. I'm actually not opposed to pipelines. I'm not opposed to pipelines. I like water and sewer. I think they're great. It depends on what you have in it, right? And that's what we need to talk about. So before the Clean Water Act and the Clean Air Act or any environmental laws were passed, they put 6 pipelines through northern Minnesota. They put it in the 60s, in the early 60s. And they're old. One of them's fallen apart. But they put all those in and they ran them out. It was the Enbridge company, single largest pipeline company in North America. And then they came back here 5 years ago and announced that they wanted a new pipeline. You know, so I'm minding my own beeswax up there in my community, trying to capture the value added for my rice, trying to keep the local economy from just totally hemorrhaging, working on language, working on cool stuff. And they announced this pipeline. I said, that's not gonna work out. And the pipeline would cut through our largest wild rice lake on my reservation, Big Rice Lake. And we're a people who have fought for our rice. We're people who, that is our sacred food. I said, that's not gonna work. And so we went out there and started organizing. And we explained, you know, we worked in our own community to explain what was being proposed, which was a 640,000 barrel a day pipeline, in this case a Bakken oil pipeline of fracked oil from North Dakota, that they wanted to bring across our reservation. And we had no pipeline in our territory yet. We had no pipeline. And so we went out there and we talked to our community, and then I spent a lot of time talking to, I got this theory that if you could get the Norwegians mad, that'd be good, you know? So I went out there and started trying to talk to those non-Indian people in our territory. Like not a lot of Norwegian Lutherans is what I got. You know, Minnesota and so we did. You know, we worked, I wrote a lot of articles for the paper, we had a lot of forums. And we built a multiracial alliance to oppose a pipeline known as the Sandpiper, which was this 640,000 barrel a day pipeline coming out of North Dakota. And so for 4 years, we worked together. And for our part, you know, in my community, we prayed and we had our ceremonies and we rode our horses. I dreamed we should ride our horses against the current of the oil. So I've ridden thousands of miles on pipelines now, the past 5 years. So we rode our horses, we prayed, we had ceremonies, and we were in the regulatory process at every hearing. Some people called Friends of the Headwaters filed a lawsuit against the Enbridge company in the state of Minnesota, forcing the state of Minnesota to conduct a full environmental impact statement on that proposed pipeline. That was probably the straw that broke the camel's back. Because in August 2nd of last year, in 2016, August 2nd, after a 4-year battle against that pipeline, the Enbridge company announced the cancellation of that pipeline. So I tell you that story because it is possible to defeat a pipeline. But as you know, and everybody in here knows that you got to go to the heart of the beast. You got to stop it at the source, frankly. And I've spent a good portion of my life fighting stupid mega projects. Mines, dams. Half of you were probably in the James Bay Dam battle, right? Remember that? Against Hydro-Quebec and the big dams? A lot of you were in that. You know, I worked on that when I was at Harvard. Divestment, you know. And, but until you change the level of consumption, they're going to just switch from one to another, to another, to another. And so the Enbridge Company purchased 28% of the Dakota Access Pipeline. That's the pipeline that crosses Standing Rock. And so we followed them out there. And so my organization, Honor the Earth, was out there from April until February. My staff was out there, my family was out there, my horses were out there, I was out there, my grandchildren were out there. I went back and forth because I still had a battle at home. And did any of you go to Standing Rock? Thank you. Thank you. Give those guys a hand. Thank you for coming out there. And I know that a lot of people here supported us. Because I know that we got a lot of food, we got a lot of solar panels, we got a lot of cool stuff, and I am really, really grateful to all of your support for our resistance at Standing Rock. And I have to say that to a lot of us, that is a Selma moment. It's a Selma moment. And why I say that is a couple of reasons, is that, you know, North Dakota is an example of when civil society disintegrates. Just gotta be honest, you know. Over the past 50 years, people left North Dakota. They moved to places like Minneapolis and California, places that were cool, or maybe not as cold as Bismarck in February. Know what I'm saying? They moved to places that they found more comfortable. Children left their parents and their grandparents. At a certain point, these demographers, known as Frank and Deborah Popper from Rutgers University, they went out to North Dakota and they said they had returned to frontier status in a lot of those counties. Less than one person per square mile. People were leaving. In the meantime, there was some, you know, older farmers left up there, and they were really easy prey for the oil companies when they came in for fracking. They were easy prey because there was nobody there with them. And so civil society pretty much disappeared in North Dakota. And while Indian people continued to go into jail and more of us would commit suicide, while the Standing Rock Clinic was built in the 50s, and there's 8 doctors in all of the reservation, and we were treated pretty bad as Native people. It worsened and worsened, but nobody came. Nobody came. And how I know that is that the American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU, had one person that covered North and South Dakota. That's when you know civil society has abandoned you. You all understand what I'm saying? And Sierra Club had one person. And so I'm saying that because that's a little bit of a critique of us as a progressive community. It's like we all can't go hang out in Madison and in Cambridge. You know what I'm saying? Some of us need to go places where it's cold. Some of us need to go places where it's tough. Because it's in those places where a lot of things happen. And I used to go out there to hearings. I went onto a hearing there a couple years ago, and they were talking about this thing called TNORMs, technically enhanced naturally occurring radioactive materials. Did y'all hear that? Technically enhanced naturally occurring radioactive materials. Now what kind of nuke speak is that? You know what I'm saying? That was fracking waste. And they passed a law in North Dakota to allow those into municipal landfills, is what they did. And I was like, I go to the hearing to testify, and I was like, the first thing they said is, where are you from? And I said, Minnesota. And they said, and I said, well, you know what? What happens in North Dakota don't stay in North Dakota, right? I mean, whether it is radiation or whether it is coal, it actually ends up everywhere, right? Even over here. Even over here. So I'm at that hearing, and they're talking about technically enhanced, naturally occurring radioactive materials, and They said the most ridiculous things, and I said, "Are you guys high?" I said, "In no time in my life have I seen that the recommended daily allowance of radiation has been increased." You know what I'm saying? It's not more safe than it was 50 years ago, right? Change the background levels, make it sound like it's okay. That's what they're doing. Y'all know that, right? So the battle that happens in a place like Standing Rock or North Dakota is everyone's battle. But we went out there, you know, and that's a bad situation, and people saw that, you know. And the thing is that it's about greed. It's not about need. It never was about need. You got a state with oil that's landlocked. You got last year they had 900,000 barrels of oil that came out of North Dakota, fracked oil. You know how many barrels that came out this year? 900,000 barrels a day of oil. 900,000 barrels a day. So can you explain to me why between 2016 and 2017 they would need to add another 570,000 barrel a day pipeline? You understand what I'm saying? They had no need for that pipeline. It was about racism, it was about hatred, it was about greed, it was about shoving something down our throats. You know, but what I want to say is I'm proud of our water protectors. I'm proud of our families. My family was shot at. My family was injured. I lost a horse out there. Our family, took bullets, and our family was arrested. And a lot of other people's were too. 840 people were arrested and charged out there at Standing Rock. A lot of them looked just like you, and some of them were your children. You know, our water protectors, I'm very proud of them. They stood against rubber bullets. They stood against beanbag projectiles. You know, they stood against freezing water. And they stood against a state which deployed Tiger Swan, which is a military contractor and strategist to run their operations. As a teaching moment for all of us. And in the end, when Trump came in and approved that pipeline, you know, it saddened all of us. It was a tragedy. But at the same time, the 10,000 people that were at Standing Rock had a teaching moment. And the 10,000 people that were at Standing Rock came out more courageous, more understanding, knowing who their allies were, knowing how to put together a community in the face of, you know, a military that is looking down your throat and feeding thousands of people every day while they are blocking you off. You know, proud of my people, proud of all of our people for that moment. So today, Enbridge came back to our community with a new pipeline. It's called Line 3, single largest tar sands pipeline in the country. 915,000 barrels a day. Same route. It's like a really bad sequel, right? So I'm on year 5. I just want to say this because I would really rather be a farmer. Y'all understand what I'm saying? Like, I could think of 100 things I would rather do than fight the largest pipeline company in North America. So sometimes you got to get out of your arena of comfort. You know, do something that you may not want to do just because somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to find their courage to stand up. And what I know, which I think you figured out, is that we beat them last time. You know what I'm saying? That corporation is so scared that they made me laugh last week. We had a viewing. They did a film on our battle called First Daughter and the Black Snake. They're showing it at the University of Wisconsin in Superior. And I crashed my own film. It was super funny. I said, hey, how's it going? It was like this packed auditorium, and they're all watching it, you know? And it made me laugh because the Enbridge Corporation asked the University of Wisconsin if they could have equal time at the event. I was like, wait, so you have a private event and the corporation says that they want to come in and have equal time to give their view. I was like, you guys got no game. Isn't that crazy? I was like, no, you don't get to come to our party. You know, throw your own party, tell your own story. You don't get to come to my party. Forget that stuff, man. Anyway, So what I want to say is that we are fighting this battle, this pipeline, and this time there are like 20 times the number of people and organizations and landowners on the line as before. And I will say that it is a brutal battle. I say that it's a brutal battle. And the state of Minnesota has not been great, but they are much better than the last time because twice, it was in October, I think, the state of Minnesota Department of Commerce said that it did not recommend approving a permit for the pipeline. And then they came back and said it again, right? So we got a shot. We got a shot at this. But 5 Ojibwe tribes intervened, a bunch of landowners, youth climate interveners, they're the best. Like a bunch of 20-something-year-old people that are like calling them on their stuff. It's so great to see, you know, and we have a shot with this. The decision will be issued sometime in the spring. And what I want to tell the people is, like, if you missed your opportunity to go to Standing Rock, and you missed your opportunity to get arrested at Standing Rock, you can get a water protector badge by coming to Minnesota if they issue that permit, okay? The camping facilities will be very nice, you know, just think, you know, the North Woods, it's all good. It's all good. You know, we have a shot, and everybody in this room knows, and I know a lot of you have been in the terrain that I have, is the longer you fight a project, the less likely it is to succeed. And particularly in this moment that we are in, this is the end of the fossil fuel era. That's what this is. They are so running out of stuff. You know, we are scraping the bottom of the barrel for this last little bit of petroleum or fossil fuels that are out there. You know, how I know it's called extreme extraction. Extreme extraction is when you know, take off the top of 500 mountains in Appalachia and act like that's normal. That's like extreme behavior, right? Extreme behavior is drilling 20,000 feet under the ocean and hoping that's gonna work out for you until you get something like the Deepwater Horizon, right? Extreme behavior is fracking. Busting up the bedrock of Mother Earth, and extreme behavior is the tar sands. And as we look out there, we all know that we can't do that stuff. But what we also know is that trillions of dollars have been divested from the tar sands. Trillions of dollars is being divested from the fossil fuels in North America and elsewhere. And you know, that is our movement. It is not only a movement of divestment, but it has to be a movement also of investment. So in our prophecies, this is referred to as the time of the seventh fire, where it is told that we as Anishinaabeg will have a choice between two paths. That's what those prophets told us a long time ago. And they said, as Anishinaabeg, we'd have a choice between two paths, and one path, they said, would be well-worn, but it would be scorched. And the other path, they say, would not be well-worn, and it would be green. And it would be our choice upon which path to embark. That's what our prophets told us, but I'm pretty sure that's not just about us. I think that is about all of us in this moment in time where we have to make a choice. And as I reflect on the situation we are in, I often think that they have taken the political system, but they have not taken the economic system. And that is our work. Because as I look out there, you know, Exxon and the three big guys, in 2011, they had $80 billion in net income. By 2016, their net income of the three biggest oil companies in this country was about $3.8 billion. They lost a lot of money. And I know that Mr. Trump with the orange hair is trying to get that back from him, but the tides are changing. The price of solar has dropped substantially. GM, Volvo, electric cars. We consume less. And besides that, why wouldn't you want to? There's a woman over here at Harvard University, her name is Mara Prentice. She's a physics professor. I love smart women. I know y'all do too, right? Okay. I tracked her down. I was like, Mara Prentice, you're the smartest woman I know. She's a physics professor. She's super kind and super modest, and I went to see her with my granddaughter, who's super, super smart. And Mara Prentice has this book called The Next Energy Revolution, I think is what it's called. But in that book, she's a physics professor, and she says the reason that it's going to change from a fossil fuel economy is simple. She said that the combustion engine in the car that most people drove here in is 16% efficient. 16% efficient between your drivetrain and your tires and your, every piece that moves in there mechanically takes more energy. It's a law of physics. And so by the time you're done, it's 16% efficient. And the engine in a Tesla is 65% efficient. So what kind of stupid society would hang around with a 16% efficient vehicle, right? That's why people are moving on. That's why they're moving on. And we need to push it. That's our job. But to push it, you got to get sometimes out of your arena of comfort. You got to do things that are not just with your cool politically correct friends where you can be an island of political correctness unto yourself. I know that because I lived in Cambridge and I was one of them. Got to get beyond that. Can't spend all our time figuring out, I feel like an island of political correctness unto myself, but I will say for my brother Al Franken, what happened back then, he was a good man. He was a good man. He was a stupid man then. But I'm saying, how political correct we all got to be? In my community, there's a lot of things that are not perfect. But what we know is that we're not going anywhere. You know what I'm saying? America's super transient. People move to greener pastures and nicer places all the time. But sometimes someone's just got to stay put and take care of and fight for the land you got. Make that place the beautiful place. Instead of moving someplace else that's more convenient, I tease people and say, you could come back to Bismarck, there's a Thai restaurant there now. It's really good too, but it's funny, it's like, it's okay. You can come to Bismarck, there's a Starbucks and a Thai restaurant. Follow me back. I was calling for the Freedom Riders to come back for the water protector trials. There is a big felony trial coming up in January of Red Fawn. She is facing a lot of time. And I would really like to see justice for our people. Most of those charges have been dismissed. But for me, I feel like first, all those charges should be dismissed. And then I feel like someone should charge North Dakota for injuring us. I want justice. And for Standing Rock, what justice looks like is this to me is, we did a little math. We have a math team at Honor the Earth, largely consisting of my companion, who's a mathematician. So we figured $3.8 billion. That's what that Dakota Access Pipeline is called. We refer to it as the Dakota Excess Pipeline. 3.8 billion for 3.8 billion, you could get 323 2-megawatt wind turbines. You know where I'm going with this, right? 161,000, I think that's what the figure was. Some, solar panels for houses, 5 kilowatts each, plus solar thermal, another 60,000 of solar thermal panels to keep the south side of people's walls, heat houses warm in winter. So what is energy security about, guys? You know what I'm saying? That's energy security, not another oil pipeline. That's what justice looks like to me. It's when the right things happen. And who's going to make the right things happen is us folks. That's how change is going to happen, because that's how all changes happens, is because people make it happen. There's not like a social change fairy that comes and fixes stuff for you. That one lives with the nuclear waste fairy and the carbon sequestration fairy. They don't exist. Change is made by the hands of individuals. Individuals who have dreams, who have power, who believe, who can organize. In my life, I've been privileged to be part of a lot of good work, but that's because we're good organizers. And you know that, when you go after Wells Fargo, one day they say we're going to give $50 million to Indian people for community development work. I said, you still got to divest. That's what Wells Fargo announced a couple weeks ago after y'all were probably there too. Right in front of them, they just made an announcement, $50 million for Native economic development work. I was like, okay, you can fund us. From our perspective, we want to see what change looks like, but we got to change the economy. In our language, there's a word, Jimisa Wabandaming. Ojibwe language has 8,000 verbs. We just are people of action. That's what I say. Jimisa Wabandaming, which means positive window shopping for your future. Isn't that great? I was like, how'd you guys get that? I was like, no, that's what it is. Positive window shopping for your future. And I feel like that's what we all should be doing. I know what the Wendigo looks like, and we gotta slay the Wendigo. We gotta be the monster slayers and the epic heroes of the past. That's who we gotta be. But at the same time, we gotta be the people that see where we're going. Because there's absolutely no vision from what I can see in a lot of places, right? So to me, I think of the Trump plan. And then I think of a plan I refer to as the Sitting Bull plan. The great leader from what is known as the Standing Rock Reservation, Hunkpapa. He said something a long time ago. He said, let us put our minds together to see what kind of future we can make for our children. That's what real leaders say. Real leaders don't marginalize people. They say we are all in this. So let us put our minds together to see what our future is like. Let's make that future. And that future is the work that a lot of people do here. That is rebuilding local food systems. That's, getting a little place for every honeybee possible. I got some honey when I came today. It was very good. It is making, renewable energy and transforming how utilities function. It is transforming local economies. It is returning land. It is justice for workers. That is how change is made. That is how we make a good future. And if you look out there, I'm privileged. I live in the same place that my great-great-great-great-greats lived. But I get to travel around. I'm one of those people that gets to see what other people do, and that's cool. And then I come home to my community and say, hey, let's try that. And they're like, where'd you go? I was like, oh, it's such a good idea, though. And, we learn from each other. Because all across this North America, or this territory, our Turtle Island, there are good things happening, and there are good people making it happen. So we need to lift those people up, tell their stories. And that's how we build this build this economy that is an economy based on reaffirming our covenant with the Creator, our covenant with each other. That's the economy we need. One where we have fair trade, where we have organics, where we treat our relatives with respect, whether they have wings or fins or roots or paws or hands. Where we think not of this fiscal year or this quarter, but we think of the 7th generation from now. I said that one time in Ohio. I was given a lecture in this kind of rural area, and this man said, that's really, really radical. I said, no, that's really conservative. If you're thinking about making a decision checking the implications for the 7th generation from now, that's some conservative thinking. Take back those terms, too. I am sick of them saying that they have faith. I have faith. Let us claim what we have and do not let them take our terms, do not let them take our language, and hold strong. Jimisa Wabandaming. I leave with you with a quote from my brothers at the Oglala Lakota Brothers. And There's this community development organization out there called Thunder Valley Community Development Corporation. They're great. They came out of their Sundance ceremonies. I go see them. I go their Sundance. I went to see them again this year, and a couple years ago, their annual report came out. And I'm just telling you this story because these people, like, nobody helped those people, but they got this themselves. So I was looking at their annual report for their Community Development Corporation, Thunder Valley Community Development Corporation, and I read this quote in it. I said, that's the most amazing quote. You know, of course, being a writer, I got to always ask permission. I was like, can I, where's this quote from? And so I call up there, and Nick Tilson, where's my friend from NASC? Ken Tilson's son. Ken Tilson's son, right, that's right, Ken Tilson's son. Grandson, Nick Tilson, Mark Tilson's his son. He's who runs that Community Development Corporation, Nick Tilson. And I said, Nick, where'd that quote come from? Can I use that quote? He says, yes, Auntie, you can use that quote, but I got to tell you where that quote came from. That's what he said to me. He said, we were going into sweat lodge ceremony. He said, a bunch of Oglala men, we were going into a ceremony. That's what he said. And we was up there, we was getting ready to go in the lodge, and we was all talking, and pretty soon we was talking smack. That's what he actually said. It's like we was talking like, he did this, and the tribal council don't do this, and they're just talking like that. And I say that because, everybody does that. I don't want you to think we're all entirely sacred at all times. So they were like talking smack. He said we got in there into the lodge, and the spirit came into the lodge. That's what he said to me. The spirit came into the sweat lodge. And the spirit said, he said, this is what the spirit said. The spirit said, how long are you going to let others determine the future for your children? Are we not warriors? When our ancestors went into battle, they did not know what the consequences were going to be. All they knew is that if they did nothing, things would not go well for their children. Do not operate out of a place of fear. Operate out of a place of hope. Because with hope, everything is possible. Time is now, and the movement is here. Miigwech, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Winona. Thank you for gracing us. We're trying to think of how to do questions with 350 people. I have a discussion, but we have a little bit of time, and what I want to do is see if there are any people who, if we could be disciplined, have a question for Winona or two, and actually could come up to this microphone here to ask it so that others can hear it. So maybe if we could, are there three people who have?
Or else they can ask it and I can repeat it.
Why don't we ask it and we'll try to repeat it. So first here, let's see, anyone else with a question that I can see here? No one else? Right here? Okay, so that would be second. And maybe a third question?
We put a lot of pressure on him. Come on.
Okay, well, we'll do those two questions and then Brother Dietz. So Ellen, if you want to try it from there.
Full disclosure, I voted for you in 2000. I think that I'm happy. So from a place of non-joking, I'm going to ask you if it's possible for reflection, consider running for Senate, perhaps from Minnesota, and to look at larger office. Because I was just talking to the gentleman behind me, and I thought, my God, how amazing would it be if you were president of all of our lives.
Yeah, thanks. I'm going to repeat the question. So she, said without joking that, looking at the Senate seat in Minnesota and, national elections, if I, reflect on doing something like that again in my life. And you know, I have to say that, so right now, I have the largest pipeline company in North America facing my people. I am keeping an eye on that, and we intend to defeat that project. And, you know, I don't want to just, you know, and at the same time, my tribe and the other tribes in our territory are moving into a renewable energy strategy. And so what I want to see is, instead of, you know, new pipelines for oil companies, I want to see pipelines for people. I want to see aging infrastructure fixed. You know, because we have a D in infrastructure in this country. And I didn't sign up for that. I want it fixed. I want people put to work on that. And my battle front is Minnesota. You know, and so I cannot leave my territory. You know, and at the same time, our tribes have vision. We're doing renewable energy, and you know, I have one of 26 permits with my partner Dawn in the state of Minnesota to grow hemp. I'm an industrial hemp farmer, and I plan to. And I just did a successful Kickstarter. I had no idea how that worked, but I bought a farm, and I'm about to launch into like a regional hemp strategy. And a lot of that is based on the fact that this country, until the early part of this last century, most of our clothing was actually hemp. About 80% of our clothing was hemp. And until 1943 in Minnesota, we had 11 hemp mills. So I'm interested in rebuilding an economy that makes sense. And that's what I want to do. And so I'm starting in my territory because that is where I live. But also, I have to say, I'm not a really good urban person. So I have to kind of stay in a rural area and then travel to the city. So, thank you for your, you know, and at some level, I believe that, you know, we need strong national leadership, obviously. And I'm really very vexed about the situation in Minnesota, as you all gathered. At the same time, you know, I want to transform the economy of a region, and we're going to do it from the ground up. And that's what I'm going to be part of. So, thank you.
Hi, I'm on the board of directors for the North American Indian Center of Boston. Tomorrow we're going to have our craft fair, so quick plug, I just wanted to make sure everybody here goes to the center tomorrow. I'm also a member of the Tunica Biloxi tribe. Probably from your time here as a student, you might remember the Tunica Treasure, which was held at the Peabody Museum. And more recently, the movie Wind River. My tribe had funded that film, and we stripped the name of Harvey Weinstein from that film, and we are funding the campaign for the Oscar season. My question to you is that as a member of the Native community, both on the reservation, but in the urban Indian context, for all of our communities, one thing that we are faced with is not so much the opposition, but how do we manage the allies and the good intentions? What can we point to as a functional model of consultation for our community members to actually bring in people and have productivity towards, you know, the progress that we're talking about, moving towards a better economic model for all of us?
Yeah, I think that, you know, there's a couple of pieces of that question, you know, but one of the basic elements of it is like how we work with allies to make the changes that need to happen, something like that. Okay, so first I want to say that as an undergraduate at Harvard University, I worked in the Peabody Museum and cataloged that collection. I worked for Jeffrey Brain. That's your anthropologist, right? Yeah, it was like, you know, so anyway, I just want to say I'm familiar with some of that treasure. That's really interesting. I didn't realize the significance of it, but that's what I did in like my undergraduate year, one of my years. In the bigger picture, I mean, you know, there are different ways to work, you know, but I look at the issue of, for instance, Indigenous Peoples Day. That's a perfect example. You know, I mean, it's a process that is symbolic, but yet at the same time, it's this opportunity to change from a city and then a state which celebrates colonialism and empire, or a state, which should have Indigenous Peoples Day, to honor the people who are here. So I'm saying that is a tangible thing that I would say is something in the state of Massachusetts. And I feel like that, having been around New England and the kind of Yankee colonialism that exists here, I think it's really important to come to terms with some of that. In the example I gave, I don't know if you're familiar with the Wounded Knee collection at the Barrie Museum. The Barrie Historical Society has the largest collection of memorabilia that was stripped from the bodies of Wounded Knee of any place in the country. Huh? Barrie, Massachusetts. And I went there like many years ago, and one of my books, which is sitting over here, is about that collection. But I went there, and the description that was given to me was that, she actually told me that the people knew that things were not going to go well, and they took off their fineries before they went to Wounded Knee. That's what she told me. And that is the mythology that is associated with the keeping of that collection. And so what I don't really, what I'm saying is like, that's just a small example of the booty that is held in this state of Native peoples throughout the continent. And it is held in Phillips Andover, it's held in Barrie, it's held at the Peabody Museum. And I feel like, I don't know how justice is sorted out, but I feel like at some point, we want our drum back that's at Andover. I think it's coming back. We want to be well. And that's like a historic trauma issue. But then, and so I have to just say it, that exists here in Massachusetts, and I know it's here, because I cataloged it. I was in it, in the middle of it. At the same time, the question of how we work together, and there are many ways to work together. There are the issues of whether it is repatriation and healing and historic trauma, or it is how you build allies to make the communities that we want and the relationships that we want. And those are built by people, working, and sometimes they are built around a certain specific piece. I mean, I'm a community organizer, I would guess, by training. So I'm like, what do we want to get? Like, if you get one thing that you can show to other communities that can make a difference, that really helps a lot. And the more that you do that, the stronger that the movement grows, because people get confidence that they can make a change. So, there are a lot of really enlightened, good-hearted people in this city, and obviously in this room. And a lot of the people here are doing great things. In your communities or in whatever your arena that, or the work that fills you with passion. So just keep doing that, but just be mindful and conscious. Also, I have to say, of the Wampanoag and the other Indigenous people that are here. And let us make peace, and let us support these communities as the Wendigo looks upon them. Because the Wendigo looks upon all of us. And really, we have to be the people who kill the Wendigo. We have to be the people that change the economy. We have to be the people that change the hatred that is being spewed. And say, we are not those people. We are not haters. So. Okay, you guys are up.
I just returned from being on the West Coast for 7 years. I was living, in California, where we have Jerry Brown, who has promoted himself as a leader in the green movement in spite of fracking, and doing huge water diversion projects that are going to ruin the ecosystem out there. I I was there when the Chevron refinery blew up and sent 15,000 people to the hospital. I was able to see the flames of that refinery fire from my mom's house, and I was my witness. And we see these things, these sacrifice zones, these areas where these huge companies come in, like the Bakken River oil fields, or like so many parts of the world where these companies are spewing huge amount of toxins into the atmosphere. And we look at the economy today, and one of the things that's being sold big in Indian country is the carbon trading. Would you speak to that, and how that makes those things possible, and what that really means for Indian people?
Yeah, I mean, I know you guys look at the same kind of picture I do, and I say that Oren Lyons is who I first heard say it, and he said the Creator's law is the highest law, higher than the laws made by nations, states, or municipalities, and one would do well to live in accordance with the Creator's law. And we live in a society that believes that man's laws are higher. And so we do things like trade pollution credits and carbon credits, change recommended daily allowances of pollution according to who's in power, right? And assume we are so smart and clever, we can fix it all. So to me, it is this bigger question. It's not, it is about the fact that the solution to the problems that have been created will not be found in the paradigm which created them. And that's what we have to deal with, We need to be the people that kind of liberate our minds. Because I probably went to school with some of you, and I remember that if you wanted to study the art of Europe, you went to the Fogg Museum or the Fine Arts Department. But if you wanted to study indigenous art, you went to the Peabody. That's a whole valuation of knowledge that presumes that some art is fine and some knowledge is valid. And, frankly, where we're sitting now, I'm not thinking that's so smart. And so for us, I feel like we, have this opportunity to do the right thing and to be courageous and to, whether it is challenge the ridiculous nature of, how many things can you trade but keep your same system, right? And there's a lot of ways to make the change, but I really think that finding the courage to do to make those changes, and everyone here, you look out there and you see it happening. I mean, while there is the continued globalization is predicated on access to cheap fossil fuels. And relocalization is happening at exactly the same time, right? And relocalization is happening because why? Because it's way cooler to have cool local stuff than to do all that other stuff. I was reading a story today and yesterday that farmers in this country continue to commit suicide. I think it was in The Guardian today's, but it was at a rate that is almost on par with soldiers returning from the war. And I thought, how sad is that? And all those guys that are committing suicide are those farmers who drank the Kool-Aid of the Green Revolution. And the farmers who are not committing suicide are the organic farmers and the Amish farmers. So what does that tell you about where we need to go? And people are doing it here in Massachusetts because you never got run over so badly with the industrialized farming. But keep doing it. That's how the economy is going to change, is that we keep doing it. And we deepen our work, and we feed more people, and we, you fight those guys, you got to keep fighting them. But at the same time, everybody in this room knows that you do not want to spend, it's not even that, it's just you have to have a vision of where you're going. It can't just be saying no. It has to be, hey, we got a way better plan, and this is what it looks like. And that's what we're doing in Minnesota. So like I said, y'all can come see us with or without the pipeline. But come stand with us and let's make this change. Miigwech, thank you again for your time.
Can't do that. Before you depart, I want to just invite you to linger. We have a parish hall through that door there that has cookies and cider, and we invite you to get to know your neighbors, introduce yourself. A couple of gratitudes. I want to thank Brian Tucker and Yusa Runefeld, who provided us music earlier. And we're very thankful that we have an independent bookstore here in our neighborhood, Paper Cuts. If you'd like to purchase a book, there'll be a table in the other room where Winona will sign books, so purchase books here. So please stay, and finally, one more thanks to our speaker, Winona LaDuke, and thank you all for coming out.